Hi, my name is Shayla Bishop, and I'll be defending the Hypera postica, commonly known as the alfalfa weevil.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Wallace, and I'll be defending the Diphyrus noxia, commonly known as a Russian wheat aphid. Our debate question is, which species would cause the greatest infestation or losses?
So like I said before, I'm defending the alfalfa weevil. The Hypera postica is in the Coleoptera order. Its primary host is the alfalfa plant, but they can also be found feeding on burr clover, sweet yellow clover, vetch, and sometimes on other clovers. Entomologists believe it's native to southeastern Europe. It was first seen in the United States in 1904, specifically in Utah, and can now be found in 48 of the mainland states. The alfalfa weevil causes damage to alfalfa crops mainly. They do this in every stage of life. First, in the fall, females lay eggs inside the stem cavities of alfalfa. Then the larvae develop in 3 to 4 stages in spring over 29 to 58 days. The larvae and adults both feed on the alfalfa foliage or buds. Adults feed mainly on the main stems, side shoots, leaf stems, and leaves. It's important for farmers to be able to identify the alfalfa weevil in order to treat their crops before they are destroyed. If the weevils are present is looking at the leaves and seeing if they appear shredded. Farmers can recognize the larva by these characteristics. Small, light green in color, black-headed, legless with a white stripe down the center of its body. The adults are brown with a dark line down the middle of their backs and have a downward beak. The most damage typically occurs before the first cutting. I think the alfalfa weevil causes the most significant loss because the feeding damage done by both adults and larvae greatly reduces the quality and yield of the first cutting of hay. It could potentially reduce the quality of cuttings to follow as well. While there are other species that are present on alfalfa, the alfalfa weevil causes the most damage economically. This weevil is medically harmless.
Okay, as I previously stated, I'm defending the Russian wheat aphid, or the Diphyrus noxia, or D-noxia. Is most commonly found in the areas where wheat crops are grown, native to the southwestern parts of Asia. It has also been introduced to many countries in Europe and Africa. It was first reported in the United States in 1986 in the great state of Texas, most likely transmitted through wheat crops. I believe the Russian wheat aphid causes the greatest infestation or losses as it causes significant losses in cereal crops. Although the D-noxia feeds on leaves and flowers and seed heads of grasses, it appears to inject a polypeptide toxin that affects the entire plant. Colonies are found most frequently on the youngest leaves or on newly emerged flowers and seed heads. Even in very small colonies of D-noxia, cause characteristics white to purple streaking and leaf rolling on wheat and barley leaves. Rolling extends in severity from the simple folding of the leaf along the mid-vein to one side of the leaf rolled in upon itself to the whole leaf being tightly rolled around the aphid colony. Large colonies roll the flag leaf to a point where the tip of the inflorescence becomes trapped, giving it a fish hook shape. Young plants are often stunted and even killed. Plants attacked after flowering show few to no obvious signs of obvious symptoms. Duration of the infestation may have more impact than the aphid density on yield loss.
You mentioned that the Russian wheat aphid injects a polypeptide toxin that affects the entire plant. With that being said, I assume multiple studies have been done to come to that conclusion. Have they developed a treatment to counteract the polypeptide injection to cut back losses?
That is such a great question because the virulence of the D-noxia appears to vary within and between geographic regions. New biotypes may arise that can overcome the defenses of new cultivars being released. This is essentially true for the antibiotic forms of resistance because these select for aphids that are not susceptible to the antibiosis and may reduce the efficacy of natural enemies. Resistant cultivars carrying the DN-resistant genes were classically used to control outbreaks of D-noxia. However, this control is increasingly more difficult with the development of a new denoxia-resistant breaking biotypes, putting pressure on farmers to revert to using pesticides applications to increase yields. Since the occurrence of the first biotype in 2003, biotypes of denoxia have become a serious threat to the development and deployment of plant resistance in cereals. Denoxia has a great economic impact on cereal crops. So as you stated, that the most damage typically occurs before the first cutting, but how does this affect like the second cutting?
That's very interesting. The impact of weevils on the first cutting can negatively influence the vigor of the second cutting, meaning that the quality of the alfalfa after the first cutting may not be good enough to even perform a second cutting. This results in no profit for farmers since it can't be cut or used. If the biotypes of denoxia are such a serious threat, how does their presence affect farmers' harvests and economic production?
Good question. The Russian wheat aphid has a great economic impact on cereal crops. Barley and wheat are the most important cultivated host of the Russian wheat aphid, and considerable yield losses can occur in these crops. In general, damage is greatest when crop ripening coincides with peak aphid numbers. Between the years of 1987 and 1992, it cost the U.S. over $850 million in direct and indirect losses. Farmers also have taken into the account the use of pesticides control and to monitor their crops to ensure they aren't damaged, which would ultimately cut into their profits.
In conclusion, the alfalfa weevil damage before the first cutting affects not only the first cutting, but everyone after that. This reinforces why it causes the greatest loss, because farmers are losing multiple, if not the majority, of their crops. The damage causes a decrease in yield and quality. It's important that we study them to find a way to manage their damage and presence without completely destroying the population or creating an ultimately resistant generation.
In conclusion, majority of the Russian wheat aphid damage is done on the youngest leaves or newly emerged flowered seed heads. The duration of the infestation has a direct and significant impact on yield loss. The damage caused by the Russian wheat aphid could cause total crop loss while significantly affecting the grain quality. Also, this species is very invasive, which could cause a significant and widespread reduction in the cereal crop availability, where consumers pay the price as there is an increase in price and reduction in the availability. The importance of studying this species is to reduce the damage to crops while not affecting the quality of the grains, while it is also important to monitor and prevent additional resistant biotypes.